if Obama or Clinton or Carter had done what Trump has done relative to Elon Musk, given an unelected person with clear conflicts of interest, almost unfettered access to the government to make financial decisions, to make logistical decisions, how long do you think it would be before they would be impeached? I mean, it is astounding to me that people are not marching in the streets, yelling, cussing. I cannot believe it.
Yeah.
Because you got this unelected guy just running free, running amok.
Yeah. He's a billionaire, David, and billionaires know lots of stuff. Alrighty. Welcome in to Alabama Politics this week. Josh Moon and
David Person.
How are you, David?
Man, I'm feeling good. It's a sunny day here in North Alabama. I feel good.
There's a little bit of overcastness to it, but let me tell you, it's warm.
Warm outside. That's true. It is warm.
Warm outside. I've been, I went to, I'm a little girl, 6. She loves to play softball, and so we went over. Some friends of ours were at the park over in Athens, right at the rec center. Really nice rec center in Athens, by the way. Really like it a lot. But we went over there to the fields. We were going to play for a little bit. And they had the fields locked because God forbid you let the kids get out on the fields and play. But we were able to get out in like the field adjacent to it there and hit some and stuff. And so then the other parents and some other folks were at the park. And so I was like, hey, if y'all want to go play at the park for a little while with them, stay around them, I'm gonna go run. I'm gonna go hit these trails. And man, they have got some really nice trails over there. A lot longer than I realized. And I got, you get to this point in the running sometimes where you're like, whew, I don't know, man. And then I'd left her with them, so I had to get back. And now I'm at like the halfway point, and we're at like almost 3 miles. And I'm like, damn, I got to get back. So yeah, we put in a solid 5-ish or so there that day, and been going back and doing that ever since, man. And it's I like it. I like it a lot.
Good for you.
Running the trails does not seem to hurt the back and knees quite as bad as running on the streets and stuff. So
yeah. Well, good for you. You're a runner. At my age, with my bad knees and ankles, I'm a walker. I'm not a runner. But I did find there's a library here in North Huntsville that has a beautiful walking trail or walking path, I should say, around it. And I hit that sometimes, and there's some other places I go, but
there's some really nice places up in Monsanto, right up there.
Monsanto,
mountain and stuff. Really, really nice, like for hikes and things like that. It's a really, really pretty place up through there.
Green Mountain is pretty nice too.
Yes, it is. It's a. Yeah, listen, so this is welcome into the running podcast, running and walking podcast. This is for your health on NPR.
That's funny.
It's not, if somebody, I'm not a runner, by the way. I mean, to call me a runner, I believe is an insult to actual runners. Okay. I mean, as I get out and do my little jog and I'm fine, but it's an old man jog. I'm not beating anybody's time. Matter of fact, a friend of mine, I was talking about running because I tried to get in a 5K, which is basically a little over 3 miles. And my friend of mine was talking about his son was getting scholarship offers to run cross country at a couple of colleges. And I was like, really? He was like, yeah. He's like, man, they were asking him what his 5K time was and all this stuff. And he was like, well, we'll offer you like tomorrow, a partial scholarship. And I was like, really? I was like, what was his 5K time? And man, he was running a 5K. And basically what was taking me to run a mile.
Wow.
I mean, it is. I was like, my God, I'm going backwards. What is happening here? It's so. But anyways, you're right. It's the weather's starting to turn from I hope from the dreary gloom and awfulness of winter and it's cold, and soon we'll be into those sweet, sweet 90-degree days, and that 100% humidity. Oh, I can feel it.
Well, yeah, sweet for you. It was 70 degrees yesterday, though. That was nice.
Yeah, it was. It was. I had to go down to Montgomery yesterday, and it was 80 degrees down there. So,
oh wow,
yeah. So it was really nice. But yeah, listen. Before we get running on the show here, the smorgasbord that we're gonna have, I need to tell you about the fine folks at Wind Creek Entertainment who sponsor this, because it is Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. They're great. They're our best sponsors, because they just say, hey, do your show, man, and they're great. And also because they have really nice establishments that we have both stayed at, both visited. We both enjoyed a lot. The restaurants, the spas, the games, the overall atmosphere and vibe at those places, man, is really top level. What you would expect out of a real. I mean, people say Vegas style resort, or top level resort. I mean, this is what that is. I mean, you go into those places, and it's not some half-baked kind of ordeal. It's
not even close.
It's a really, really nice place. But all three places in Atmore, Wetumpka, and Montgomery. Look them up online, Wind Creek Entertainment. Book you a stay, book a spa visit for your wife. Hey, Valentine's Day is coming up. Call them, say, look, what have you got? What have you got in the way of gift certificates that I could give my wife, or for both of you? Book a couple's weekend, get away, go down, have some fun. Go to the spa, go to a nice dinner at Fire. You can't beat it. You really, really can't. She'll love it. You'll love it. Everybody will have a happy time. You come back and you'll think, man, the folks at Wind Creek, made life better for me. You'll be watching football games and basketball games endlessly, and nobody will be the wiser. So.
And if you're a fan of R&B music from the 90s, I understand that Monica's going to be there in March.
Nice.
So that's something to look out for too. You want to go to the website and get all the details, get all the deets, as the kids used to say. But yeah.
The kids used to say we were watching the Grammys on Sunday, and there's somebody, and man, it just once you pass a certain age, I swore I was never going to be this way. And somebody will come out, and people will go insane, and I'm just like, who is this person?
Yep.
And how said. Trying to feel better. She said, the kids love her.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, the kids do, huh? Do the kids love her? And it was, I mean, it just made me. And listen, I'm not critical of it. I don't do that.
Right.
Oh, she's not so and so. And Beyonce winning the country Grammy. Oh, it made me so happy, because I know that on that little section of Facebook that just turned to absolute shit on them over there. It was just, but it was a good country album.
It really was. It
had Dolly and Molly Cyrus. Honestly, I like the Molly Cyrus duet as much as anything on the album. Well, I like Texas Hold'em fine. I liked the new incarnation of Jolene that she did. But I can't remember what the name of that song was with Molly Cyrus, but that song was really good.
Yeah, so. But I know I listened to bits and pieces of it over the months, and I loved what I heard. And Texas Hold'em that's a great song. The Jolene remake is great. Here's the thing, and I know this is not on our agenda for today, but since you brought it up, I just got to say, a lot of people really truly don't understand the fact that Beyonce making a country album is consistent with the history of country music.
That's exactly right.
And I'm not talking about Charlie Pride or Darius Rucker. I'm saying way, decades before those guys, or even Ray Charles, way even before Ray Charles. Black people were making country music.
Yep.
In this nation, Black people have been big country music fans. In this nation for decades and decades. So this is part of I hate to say it, folks, but just like jazz and R&B and rock, and gospel. You know, the black influence on country music has been there probably pretty much from the inception. In fact, the banjo it came from Africa, folks.
Wait a minute. Did you say rock? Because I believe that Elvis was the king of rock. And we all know that Elvis did not appropriate any of that stuff that he did from anybody. Okay?
Yeah, not Elvis, not the Beatles. They didn't appropriate anything.
Yeah.
You know what, though? I give Elvis credit and the Beatles credit because they acknowledged you know, the black influence. You know, I think Elvis acknowledged that you know, Hound Dog came from Big Mama Thornton, and the Beatles definitely, you know, acknowledged everybody from Bo Diddley to Chuck Berry and Little Richard. You know, in fact, you know, and it's public knowledge, you know, I've got a connection to Little Richard's family, and you know, Paul McCartney, and you know, when Richard died, I mean, just people were reaching out to the family, notable people, and or making public statements about the influence, and Paul McCartney was one of them. You know,
yeah. Listen, this segment of the show brought to you by DEI. DEI, the more you know. So.
Right on with that,
yeah. No, listen, this actually is true. You know, I mean, there's a lot of people that are probably like, "What? You get the hell out of here!" But no, listen, it would behoove a lot of people if you are angry about that sort of thing, to go back and look at the history of a lot of those genres and who was influencing. And I've never understood this. Well, he's not country. He's not a rock star, you know, sort of thing. And you know what? We have country music artists, you know, rapping in their songs now. You know, I mean, it you know, that Post Malone has crossed over and done some stuff, and I really like Post Malone a lot, and I like some of the music that he's put together of late. And you know, it just you listen, if it's good, you like it, you know, and if you like it, then you like it. If you don't, then don't listen to it and shut up. Okay. I mean, it's just, I don't understand why everybody's in everybody's business all of a sudden, you know. I mean, just leave people alone. Let them enjoy what they enjoy, and just, you know, do your own thing if you don't like it. So, all right. Into actual politics.
All right.
So we had the state of the state.
In
other news, we had David brought this up earlier. He said, "Well, we probably ought to talk about the state of the state." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, you can tell by your face you're really enthused." And I was like, "Yeah, well, as enthused as I was listening to it."
Right.
It's just, you know, there were a couple of things I liked in the state of the state. You know, I will say I agree with our friends at AEA who were. I don't think they'd call me a friend anymore for last week, but
that was kind of rough. We were kind of rough on them.
Well, they deserved it. You know, they put out a statement almost immediately congratulating Kay Ivey for her talking about giving personal leave, family leave to teachers, and trying to make that happen, which is something that should have happened a long time ago. I mean, you know. But I mean, it's nice. It's nice that they knew how to put out a press release about something. You know, now it came flowing right out. It's really nice. But that was good. I mean, the Choose Act stuff didn't get a press release about that. And some of the other nonsense, you know, just you know, calling it the Gulf of America. I mean, it's just. What are we doing?
That's
you
just
know, what
plum
y'all
foolishness. That's just
sound
plum
like kids.
foolishness.
You sound like little kids trying to imitate the popular guys in school or something. You know, it's just like, what? It's so sad and pathetic to watch y'all do this, to watch you shame yourselves in this way, especially somebody like Kay Ivey, who has a lifetime of public service at this point. Okay, she has no more races to run. She is, you know, she's not going to have another job. She's done with things. And so at this point of her political career, it should just be about her legacy.
That's right.
And right now, her legacy is her name on the side of a prison. You know, And I, I don't know, man. It's just kind of endlessly depressing to listen to some of the stupid things that get said and some of the stupid things that people continue to push, even when we all know they're stupid. The Gulf of America, the buying of Greenland, or the taking of Greenland, or the Panama Canal, or here's a go, the $50 million for condoms which somehow magically turned into $100 million yesterday from Trump, that they stopped from going to Gaza or wherever it was supposed to go, or saying that we're going to turn Gaza into the Riviera of the Middle East.
Yeah, that was just such a
talking about.
That was such a stupid, and it was stupid, but it was also, I'm going to say, for me, I found that kind of frightening.
Yes,
because Netanyahu is apparently standing right there with him. I didn't see the press conference, but I heard the reporting on it. He said that Netanyahu was standing right there with him when he said that. And I'm thinking, are they really going to decimate that area? Are they basically going to gentrify Gaza? Is that what we're talking about?
That's what he was talking about, yes. They were gonna move somewhere else. The Palestinians, the Gazans, they were going to move somewhere else.
Well,
where? I don't know.
Yeah, that just pretty much, I think that pretty much verifies for all of us, the apartheid, the apartheid impetus here, and for those of us who lived through what South Africa was and then what it has become, in terms of becoming a truly democratic, multiracial democracy where the majority is no longer subjugated by a minority, that's very disturbing. It's extremely disturbing.
Yeah.
So.
And it's ignorant. It's ignorant of this whole history and the whole fight. I mean, it's ignorant of our involvement in Iraq. It's ignorant of our involvement, of everybody's involvement in any Middle Eastern country, and what tends to happen when you mix war and religion, and the feelings of the people that happen there, and this idea that, we're just going to do it. Don't worry about it. No, brother, that is never going to happen. They will blow that up every single day.
Sure.
And it will be exactly like it was in Iraq when you have insurgents, because they're not going to fight like we are. I watched this great thing the other day. I can't remember who the interview was with and who was giving the interview. And he talked about one of the reasons that we wanted to go to war originally in Iraq was to demonstrate to people, because that was, at the time, the Iraqi army was like the 6th largest army in the world. And we squashed it like a bug. And that was one of the things that we wanted to do. We wanted it to just have this show of strength that was to show the rest of the world, here's where we are. If you continue to do these things, this is the might and force that will come down upon you, right? But what it actually taught was, we can't fight them conventionally. So we've got to change the way we fight. And we've got to fight through insurgency, through terror attacks, through cyber attacks, through other means than simply straight up, soldier versus soldier sort of deals. And that's it changed war, essentially, forever, from the perspective of the people who are fighting us. They know they cannot take us on straight up. But now that's why we live in essentially a state of fear, and we're all taking our shoes off at the airport, and because it changed the way they were going to fight us, and that's exactly what's going to happen here.
Well, yeah, I think you make a good point, and I also would say that the what Biden accomplished, in terms of the ceasefire and all of that, Trump is about to blow that up. Obviously, with this, Gaza, Riviera, Gaza and the Riviera comment, one thing I think we should be mindful of is, and if nothing else, even as off-putting and problematic as that statement is, and what it portends is, here's the reality we're facing right now in the United States. We have a government in place that is chaotic, that is incompetent, and that has created destabilizing situations and circumstances in our nation. The way I see it right now, Josh, Putin has won without firing one shot. I almost feel like the war is being waged now by just, how can we destabilize the United States?
Yeah.
And we've got, we've got a president who would be emperor, and a really compliant, weak-kneed, Congress and court system, apparently, at least on some levels, that is kowtowing to him. And we're slowly seeing the disintegration of our nation. Pretty soon, if we continue on the course we're on right now, a lot of the things that we're talking about are going to be moot, honestly.
Yeah.
They're going to be moot.
Yeah. No, you're right. And it's, and to what gets you is, man, it's, hey, I listened to a little short segment of the Pod Save America guys. And, they were talking about one of the more troubling things for them was nothing really breaking through. All this stuff that's going on in the government, right now that we're talking about, and the problems that we see, with an unelected billionaire with billions in government contracts going through and killing other government contracts and doing all of these, having access to all of this sensitive data and personal information and things, the payment lists and all this, all of these things. Very little of it's breaking through. But then they said, but you look at it, and one of the things that did break through was the $50 million for condoms. He said, you hear it. It's one of the things that has shown up the most in social media posts and people's talking points, just on social media around. And it's clearly broken through to people, and they believe that they stopped $50 million for condoms out of this whole thing. And it's almost as though the more absurd the lie at this point, that's what gets through. If you can say this absurd thing, and that's what catches people's attention, because there's so much else going on that it's got to be some absurd off the wall nonsense for it to catch on. And so, I mean, maybe Democrats just ought to start saying, do you know that he's cutting the heads off of children? No,
I'm laughing, but I think, as absurd as it would be to say that, at the same time, like you're saying, absurdity seems to be the thing that's breaking through, and the thing that seems to get the most reaction from people. So it's almost a catch-22, I guess. I'm also concerned about this. The Trump administration is setting up a scenario where the news that comes out of the White House is now going to be no longer mainstreamed, vetted coverage, right? What is going to be the coverage, the process for coverage is changing. They're allowing now a lot of overtly right-wing media outlets to come in.
Right.
And I'm not saying they don't have the right to cover the White House. I'm not saying that. I am saying I think there's a concerted effort to change the way that the White House is covered in a way that skews way to the right.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people will say, well, it's been to the left all these years. Well, I think the problem with that is, and that they refuse to acknowledge, people that are going to say that refuse to acknowledge, is that it hasn't mattered if there's a Democrat or a Republican in the White House. In terms of the kind of coverage you get from the press corps, it's always been, very accountable coverage, direct questions, hard questions. It hasn't mattered if who the president has been, and they're trying to change that to I think, where what's going to happen is we're just going to have a bunch of right-wingers who are pro-Trump just lobbing up softballs for for the young lady, I can't remember her name right now, the press secretary, to just hit out the park.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right, and and I appreciate Caitlin Collins and some of the other folks who have gone and tried to, the lady that yesterday at the press conference with Trump and Netanyahu, who was just asking him, what's endlessly frustrating is to listen to people, longtime reporters who attempt to ask Trump technical questions that a president should be able to answer, especially when you're talking about, occupying Gaza. We're going to occupy Gaza. And that's what that's what he's offering up is the United States military occupying Gaza. And
Can we add one word to that, Josh?
Yes.
Occupying and commodifying.
Uh-huh.
Which I think is key. He wants to commodify Gaza. And that is also very scary.
Yes, it is. And it's just, she was like, under what authority are you going to do this? And where do you expect these people to go? While you're talking about, and I mean, and he just launches into this thing about, when I see that area there, I see this, and it honestly, what it struck me as? This is going to be so obscure, but have you ever seen the movie The Great Outdoors with John Candy and Dan Aykroyd?
Oh, you're going way back.
They take
I don't
their
remember
kids,
seeing that. Yeah,
they take their kids, to this cabin. Their families will go to this cabin and stuff, and at one point, Dan Aykroyd's supposed to be this big, wealthy guy that has vision and stuff, and investor, and John Candy's just, I think he's a school teacher, just a simple guy, and he asked him, when you look out across that bank, what do you see? And he was like, I see trees. What do you mean? What? I see trees. And he's like, well, I see the vast untapped resources that, he launches into this whole thing. And it just sounds like Trump at this point, and that guy, as it turns out, is full of shit. And, is a complete fraud with his fake Rolexes and everything else and completely bankrupt. And so, I mean, it just reminded me of that whole scene there where it's just this guy just spewing bullshit, I mean, that's all Trump is doing at this point is just completely spewing bullshit. And, and saying these things, I honestly, I think it's some of the times he thinks he's being smart, like with the tariffs and stuff, where, and by the way, just so we don't leave out of this segment without this being said, that man got completely played by Mexico and Canada.
Sure did.
Stuff, okay?
Sure did.
Everything that they promised him was already promised. Maybe he knows it and he just wants to try to make it seem like a win because he knows all of the people that follow him are too stupid to know that. But everything that they promised had already been promised. And okay, well, I'll delay them if you just do the things you already said. I mean, it's just, and then to watch his stupid people trip all over themselves to say, oh, what a great negotiating with strength. He just pissed off two of our biggest allies, our two largest trade partners, the people that Canada had done nothing to us and had promised everything, and was a good business partner, a good neighbor, I just
probably the best neighbor we could have asked for, really.
Yeah, and you just over and that dude doesn't care about fentanyl. I mean, unless he's making fentanyl in his own warehouse somewhere, he doesn't give a shit about fentanyl, and we all know it.
Right. And what about China? China has now upped their tariffs even above beyond the tariffs that we put on them. So that was a big win for Trump, wasn't it?
It's going to be a mess, man.
Let me just add one other thing.
Okay.
Thought about this morning. If Obama or Clinton or Carter had done what Trump has done relative to Elon Musk, given an unelected person with clear conflicts of interest, almost unfettered access to the government, to make financial decisions, to make logistical decisions, how long do you think it would be before they would be impeached? I mean, it is astounding to me that people are not marching in the streets, yelling, cussing. I cannot believe it.
Yeah.
Because you got this unelected guy just running free, running amok.
He's a billionaire, David, and billionaires know lots of stuff. And really, if you continue to criticize billionaires, it's really going to start to cut into my belief that someday I might be one. Okay, so
my God, help us all.
I know, right? I know. All right, we're going to slide out. We're going to come back. We've got the president of the Decatur City Council, Jacob Ladner, is going to join us. We're going to talk a little bit about the police department there, and we've covered the shooting of Stephen Perkins for a while here, and he's going to talk about the report that was done on the police department, where things kind of stand with the chief, and give his opinion on things. I would say that Mr. Ladner has been one of the more middle of the road guys, but I think has earned a lot of respect from a lot of people for the way he's handled this situation, and so really wanted to get his perspective on things. I think he's taken a really measured approach. So let's get out. We'll come back in just a minute. It's Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. Alrighty, welcome back. It's Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person, and we are happy now to have with us President of the Decatur City Council, Jacob Ladner. And you didn't hear, before we came on to this segment, I kind of told people you were coming and said, I've been pretty impressed with the way that you have navigated what has been a very, very tough situation in Decatur. I no matter what side of the aisle, and surprisingly, it's been really slanted towards, I would say, the Stephen Perkins side of things. I would say for most folks in Decatur. I mean, even I grew up there in Decatur, and still have a lot of friends. My parents still live in Decatur, and even a lot of those folks that who argue with me over politics, they still knew Stephen, they worked out with him, and so they've taken that side of things and thought things were wrong, but still, I think navigating it as the city council president, or even just a city council member, period, is a tough job at this point, and I feel like from talking to everybody and from my own personal opinion, you've handled it very, very well. So I guess when you look back over the last, what's it been, 16 months, 18 months or so now?
Yep, 16, yeah.
Yeah. Well, how do you feel about, I guess, the way you've handled it yourself and just the way things are?
Well, I appreciate that comment. Sometimes I wonder how well I've handled it, but we've all made mistakes. I think early on you're just trying to you don't train for kind of this type of situation we've had in Decatur, and the tension and kind of what we've had to deal with. And so early on, you're just trying to be sensitive to everybody's very raw or very real feelings and experiences and things. And so in doing that, I probably, certainly got criticized a lot about kind of how I handled the meetings early on. And I certainly made some mistakes, but I wanted to err on the side of listening as much as possible to people and experiences that I'll never understand. And, I thought that was important early on, but, the city as a whole, we're still going through it. I think if people will just kind of look at our end goal, no matter where we sit on the side of this issue, is, we want a better city when we come out of this thing. And we have a real opportunity to do that. We have a real opportunity to be better than we were on September 28th of 2023, if we'll all recognize that's what we're after and kind of come together. So, I think we've made mistakes along the way, no question. I would put myself up there. I could have handled things better, but you just try to make the next best, right decision and keep moving forward. And that's what I try to do. So,
yeah, no, I think that's all anybody can do. Right now, I think we're, I guess, at the point. I know you had the independent review of the police department that came out. I've listened to some of the city council meetings since then, and read a lot of the stories from the Decatur Daily, which I got to say, the Decatur Daily has really done a great job of covering this whole thing. In my opinion, as a newspaper guy, I feel like they've handled this about as well as you can handle it. And I guess I tell you what I wrote was I don't understand. I guess maybe I'm looking at it from an outsider's perspective, even though I grew up there. And my outsider's perspective is, no matter what we say at this point about Todd Pinion, the police chief, he's over a department in which these officers were at a place they shouldn't have been, doing a thing they shouldn't have been doing under guidelines and rules and regulations. Then they were going to cover it up. I mean, that there was with the press release that came out, and then we have this report that comes out, and it says, well, there are other instances of similar things that have occurred along the way. And so to me, it seems as though, and this is my opinion, outside looking in, it seems as though it's a guy who doesn't have full control of a police department, and doesn't seem to have, according to his own officers, doesn't seem to have control a lot of the higher ranking officers who run their own little fiefdoms within in the department. And putting on top of that the communications issues that he readily admits himself, which I know I saw you bring up at the last council meeting. How can he remain? Or what is your opinion over? Am I wrong in saying these things? Am I wrong in these beliefs that I have about this?
Well, some of what you described will be, of course, a big part of a criminal trial here in a couple of months.
Right,
And
I understand.
We'll get to hear all the details and facts of that. I think one thing I would say, and the report did come out, and I think first off, the group that did that, I thought, did a very good job. We asked them to kind of have a really broad scope. They, a kind of a shallow dive, but look at a whole lot of things. And I really think it's a lot of money, but we really needed that to get some clarity on what was going on. The report itself, in my opinion, if Chief Pinion from day one back in September, October of 2023 had really just taken the reins and the bull by the horns and said, hey, we're going to fix this. We've seen some issues. And then all along the way, I mean, we've had, protests with protesters getting slammed on cars. And then the next week we're basically allowing the protests to do whatever they want. And then we're slamming them on cars again. Then we have this gag order hearing that, really was the catalyst for me to go, hey, this isn't really our function as a city council, but we've got to do something to help move us forward. The Third Friday event, which just really went south, but we just had kind of instance after instance after instance. And I think over that time, if he would have just been a lot more visible to the community, to the council, to everybody, to the outsiders, watching from all over, and said, hey, this is not becoming of a Decatur Police Department officer, this behavior that was described in the gag order hearing or you saw at Third Friday. And it's giving the rest of our good officers, which we have a whole lot of, it's painting them in this negative light. And we're not going to stand for it. And here's what I'm going to do to fix it. And then showed those, did those actions to fix it. I would have a lot more grace today to go, hey, this is not good what's in this report. There are some things that are very, very concerning that we need to fix. But I've seen that leadership over the last 16 months that I believe he can do this. The question I had to ask myself is, okay, what is that evidence? What has Chief done over the last 16 months that makes me believe he can lead us and the city through this? And I've got nothing. And so that's kind of where I've landed, is just, I just don't think he could. This was going to be difficult no matter who you were as the chief. You had to be the best of the best. And I just haven't seen any evidence that he can lead us through it. So, that's where I've landed, but it takes a super majority. If the mayor doesn't, the mayor could initiate it, and it just takes a simple majority. But, and so then where do we go? We've got to figure out, if that's not an option, how do we continue to try to move the city forward and regain the trust of the community? So it's a tough question.
I was going to ask you, Jacob, about the police department. And in light of this review that's been done, what changes do you think need to be made? And I'm talking about changes that first and foremost can be implemented immediately, and then maybe long-term, what changes do you think need to be made to restore confidence in the police department, especially in the Black community, and to create a more a more productive environment for citizens and police to coexist together?
Well, like I said, I think the first thing that I would say is, we needed a new leader. But if that can't happen, I think that immediately some things out of the Green Report that from a council's standpoint is a citizens review board change, I think is important. And the way our current it's a citizen advisory board. They are appointed solely by the chief. He appoints all the members. That was put in prior to him with the previous chief. But obviously there's some conflict of interest there. So we're looking at revamping that. That was a recommendation. We can do that probably pretty quickly, where council members can nominate, one or two people. I think the chief would still get one nomination is what they recommended, and then the mayor may get one. So looking at changing, really revamping that process where it's more of a group that has oversight from the council than just the police department. We had a lot of issues that came up in internal affairs, and that process is really broken, and that's really the backstop for the citizens when they feel like they've been unlawfully arrested or mistreated to file a complaint with internal affairs. And we saw that the distrust that we were being told about back in the spring of 2024 about that process was true. That's what the report said, is that was really a broken process. So really, that's a very, very important thing that we need to see from the chief or the police department, that those changes have been implemented. It looked like there was a lot of additional training we needed when it comes to certain, they specifically pointed out obstruction of governmental operations, and I think disorderly conduct was the other charge that you kind of see when an officer doesn't really know how they want to charge somebody, they maybe go to those two. And so we saw some negative instances where those charges maybe were not done appropriately. And so some additional training there. But, we really I think it's going to be difficult with the current leadership to move forward. And I don't think, I'll say this, I think it's important. I don't think Chief Pinion is a bad guy. In fact, I would say he served the department very well as an officer for, I think, 17 years. He was promoted by our previous chief, Nate Allen, to be a captain. So Chief Allen thought enough of his experience and productivity as an officer to make him a captain. But when we get in the situation like we are right now, where you've got to have a visible leader, I would put the police chief right up there with the mayor as who the community looks to understand where we're going, what's going on, give us some information. They've just really got to be in that void, and that is just really not. He has not done that, and I haven't seen any evidence that he can. So that's going to be difficult. But those are some instances I think we can do outside of a change in leadership to help.
Mm-hmm. My other question, at least for now, is about the racial atmosphere in Decatur. And I asked this question primarily for two reasons. One, I'm not unlike Josh. I didn't grow up in Decatur. I don't have a whole lot of familiarity with it, but I have spent time there and through the years. And it does appear to be, to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it does to me appear to be a city that is somewhat segregated by race and also by class. That's point number one, reason number one why I'm raising this. Reason number two, this unfortunate killing of Stephen Perkins certainly, at least from the outside, has the patina of a very traditional, or I won't say traditional, that's not the right word, but a very unfortunately common situation of black victim white police officers and a white police system. And so that's why I'm asking about the racial atmosphere.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Obviously, we've heard a lot in the last 16 months about that. I mean, I hear it every Monday. I sit up there, like Josh has watched a few of them, and we hear a lot about that. And I'm certainly sensitive to that in the fact that we got a question this week of, are you ever nervous when a police car's behind you? And I said no. And I understand the question that you are, but I will not. I don't have that experience, and I have to recognize that as we kind of work through this, that there is a different experience. I'll say two things. One is the school system in Decatur is actually the most diverse school system in the state of Alabama. We are about a third white, a third black, and a third Hispanic. And then it's kind of, but that's generally where we are. So we're the most diverse school system, and I think our general citizenry is similar in makeup. I think there's always work to do there. I did ask, just for clarification, I said this on Monday at the council meeting. I asked specifically to the Green Research and Technology team, did you see any aspect of systemic racism when you were reviewing body camera or complaints or anything? And they said no. And there was some pushback on that answer, and they said, we did not see any difference in the way your officers treated citizens of different races when they interacted with them, negative or positive. They definitely saw some negative that were directed at but it was consistent with the racial piece of that. They did say, and to your second part of your first question there, that maybe there was a little bit of difference in class, kind of how different socioeconomic groups were treated, but not necessarily race, which honestly, they took a very shallow dive, but I was glad to hear that. I mean, that would have been, I was glad to hear that. I'm not saying we've solved that issue, right. But I was glad to hear that. And I think they would also say that this is an issue, both the racial issue and especially the socioeconomic issue that they did see is something that police deal with. What it is that in a poor area of town, maybe that they're going to more likely to pull somebody over because they haven't renewed their tag, because they just can't afford it. And then they haven't renewed their insurance and they don't have their license, and then they had a warrant, and it's like you build up all these things, and it's very expensive. And I don't know the solution to that. I don't have a background in criminal justice, but that is a very big issue, and they did see that kind of with our department as well. So,
yeah, I'll say, my experience, and I've been gone for a while, but back and forth and stuff. But my experience in Decatur was always that it wasn't a big racial divide, and a lot of it I attributed to exactly what you said, the school system. I mean, even before we had the major influx of Hispanic folks into town, it was still a pretty evenly split. I remember I went to Austin, and it was 55-45, 60-40, somewhere along those lines. And we didn't have, I spent years living in Montgomery, and so believe me, I know segregation.
Yeah.
And the way that it's done, we didn't have the private schools either for folks to go to. And so everybody kind of went to school together. And I would have said that there would have been a little bit of an issue with class, but not really with race as much as it is. That's obviously not saying it doesn't exist, but it's certainly not as much as it is in other places. And, which honestly really surprised me when this happened. And I don't necessarily know that it was because or the contributing factor in this was that Stephen Perkins was a black man. Maybe the initial part of this was that way, but I believe they violated. I guess I could. I mean, I feel like they violated policy to go and help out somebody that they shouldn't have been doing in the first place. I know you can't comment on this, but this is just.
I will make this comment because it's public. They did something enough that 3 of the 4 officers were fired from the police force. So
yeah. So I mean, I just feel like it was maybe a practice of theirs to go and help out these tow truck drivers, for what extra pay or buddies or whatever they were getting it for, or whatever that was causing them to violate this policy to go out and do these things, and I guess probably 99 times out of 100, it doesn't turn bad on you. But when you violate policies, sometimes things turn out bad. And this was one of those situations. And
but Josh, I want to push back on that a little bit. And that's not to say that what you're saying isn't generally, I think, logical. It is. But the thing that and again, I'm looking at this as a black person and looking at the historical spectrum. So while I don't deny that the likelihood is that this was a standard practice, and unfortunately this time it went wrong, the question that I have is, what did that tow truck driver say to the police that had them in such a state that they arrived there guns ready to shoot?
Yeah.
See, that makes me think that there's an opportunity in there for some racial bias, or even or just flat out discrimination in its most hardcore forms to have been injected into this process. Because I find it hard to believe, and again, black man living in Alabama and living in America, it's hard for me to believe that they would have shown up at a white man's house or a white family's house with that kind of posture. I'm not saying they wouldn't have shown up, but would they have shown up in that way, with that level of not just aggression, but violent aggression?
Yeah. And listen, when you violate policy, these are the questions that you then have to answer. I would say, I think those are fair questions to have to answer. I want that's one more thing for me, and that's tab bowling. I am friend adjacent with tab bowling. I have a lot of folks that know him, and I always thought highly of him. I don't know that I've ever seen someone handle a situation worse than this. Or I guess maybe the more correct term would be unexpectedly worse than him. You know what I mean? Like with somebody, you expect them to handle it okay, and then they just completely fall on their face. Again, outsider perspective, not putting that on you. That's just my opinion. So I guess, has it been harder because of the way that the mayor has handled these things on y'all as the city council, or has that not really made any difference?
No, it definitely has, and it's because we've had to take, like I said earlier, I mean, it really, the third-party review is an example. That should have been done by the mayor. That's not and so we're taking a lot of time. I mean, it's a part-time job. I mean, we make about $15,000 a year being on the city council. That doesn't pay too many bills. So we all have other jobs and responsibilities. And it basically, I'll tell you this, it's 11:30 this morning. My entire morning has been spent on city council things that really most of which should be done by the mayor's office. So it definitely has put more on us. Every Monday night, we get an hour to sometimes 3 hours of public comment, and he's not there. A lot of those questions are operational, which falls under the mayor. I think early on, and I understand this from a human perspective, that he felt like he was trying to be helpful. He was going through the process of the internal investigation for discipline for the officers involved. And we were all getting berated every Monday. And I think you just have to persevere through that. A lot of it was unfair. It was unfair to me, the other council members. A lot of it even is unfair to the chief and the mayor. But you as a public servant, that's part of the job, even when it's hard. And you got to just persevere through that. And what the perseverance through that does is it helps you build bridges to the community that is hurting. Yeah. And so now, through a lot of pain and time and effort, I have those relationships. Other council members have those relationships where we can pick up the phone and call and go, hey, you said this to the news. Help me understand that. Or you said this in the council meeting. Let me try to help you with that. And there's a mutual respect. We don't agree on everything. But we've built a bridge of communication where, hey, in 2 months, we're going to have a trial around this whole issue, and there's going to be we need to have open lines of communication when that thing is getting to the point of a verdict and who knows what. So we've just had to do that in the void, but sometimes you just got to step in where, it might not necessarily be the council's responsibility, but somebody has to do it. And, we've done the best we can. Like I said earlier, we haven't done it perfectly, but, I think we're on the way to becoming a better city and a stronger city, and from a race relation, socioeconomic to all of it, police department, all those things. We're moving in the right direction, but we all got to continue to be on the same page and be able to communicate and have a relationship with each other as human beings and part of the city of Decatur. And I think we're doing that. But I was disappointed, in several things. I think the icing on the cake was I did like a 2-minute welcome video to the state of the city, and the mayor just boycotted it because I did a video because I was out of town. So I don't know what that was about.
I remember this. Yeah, it was just the whole thing. It was so stupid. It was so childish. It was like, well, you don't ask these people, and you're just trying to usurp the mayor. And I mean, it was just, honestly, it was really surprising to me to watch this just complete crumble of the guy. And our friend Nick Perkins has come on the show a couple times, and he announced the other day that he's thinking about running for mayor.
All right.
Well, I mean, but it's my understanding that you basically got the job at this point if you're going to take it. So I mean, unless it lets you quit that other gig on the side you've got going right now. So
well, how do you feel about the idea of Nick running for mayor?
I've grown to respect Nick a lot. He and I talked to him twice on the phone yesterday. I've been very impressed with Nick, and I told him, this has been probably a year ago, but after a council meeting, I said, man, I need to meet your mom because you seem to have very high character, and your family does, and just the way they've handled this. I would not have handled it as well if it were my brother. So I've just been very impressed with him. I think he's done a good job of building that respect across all different types of people, from your Republican, Democrat, white, black, poor, rich. I mean, I think everybody recognizes, man, this guy's really handled this well. From a mayor standpoint, I've always been very consistent, and what I would say, this is not a endorsement or a knock of anyone that has decided to throw their hat in the ring. The reason I'm for city manager, and you can tell Carl Cole I said that. The reason I'm a proponent of city manager is that what we're doing by electing a mayor is we're electing someone that has to run a 600-person, $100 million business is what it is. And so what I look for in a mayor is somebody who's at least kind of done that. And we have not done a good job of that in the city of Decatur, and most cities don't. It's whose sign do you like the best, who's the best at slapping somebody on the back, and they're going to build, a new civic center in Decatur or whatever. And it's like, no, have they actually managed departments? That is their job, is to manage departments, manage people, manage a budget, and they should have shown success of that in the private sector or the public sector as well. But I like to see somebody that can show they've done that, and I think that's what makes a good mayor in our form of government. Again, it should be a hired professional city manager, but that's not the structure we have. So, if Nick can show how he's got some experience doing that, and he can lead departments operationally. Again, I'm not going to knock his character and who he is as a person, because I've been very impressed. So.
Yes,
I'm not a candidate, by the way.
Well, I was going to say, I think this is him saying, okay, vote Jacob Ladner.
No. I will not run for mayor. I'll say that unequivocally. So.
Oh, is that right? Oh, man. Yeah, well, listen, I honestly, having watched a lot of the city council meetings and talked to a lot of folks, I like Nick a lot. I think Nick would do a great job. I think he's in tune with a lot of people. He's a very smart guy and he's a very caring and compassionate guy. Yeah, but also watching those things, man, I think you do a great job as well. The way you've navigated this thing is honest. I'm not saying that because you agreed to come on here and I'm trying to flatter you and stuff. It has been very impressive. It really has been. It's been a fine line you've had to walk, I think, on a lot of different things, and I don't know that anybody could have done a better job at it. And so. But listen, hey, thanks for coming on and spending time, and and thank you for what you've done. You've impressed my father, which is not easy to do. I'm still trying, and so he's there in town, and he likes you and likes what you've done, and so I think that that should be the highest praise anybody could get because he doesn't like many people. So
I appreciate it. I do.
All right, that is Jacob Ladner. He's the president of the Decatur City
Jacob.
Council, and he's done a good job around there. We're going to slide out. We'll come back in just a minute and wrap this thing up. It's Alabama Politics This Week. We're back in a minute. All righty. Welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. Thanks to our folks at Wind Creek for sponsoring, folks at SPLC for sponsoring. Yep. Thanks to Jacob Ladner for coming on. And for, really, honestly, I mean it for the work he's done around there.
Impressive guy. Very impressive. That was my first time interacting with him. Very level-headed. I thought he gave us some very thoughtful, candid answers.
Yes, I did too. Kind of disappointed to learn that he wouldn't consider running for mayor. I like Nick a lot, but I would like for there to be two solid guys running for this. And so you basically couldn't lose, and because I fear if Nick runs that. The idiots will put somebody up, and so and then you have a whole deal with race and everything else that comes into play, and you end up with a clown. But I really appreciate him coming on and spending some time. So all right, we're gonna wrap up here in just a second. There's a couple of things to get to first. One is I wrote a column for today about our medical marijuana situation. And so I don't know if I've gone in depth. And really, I'm not going to go in depth. I'm not going to get you down into the weeds like I have been on this. But what is basically holding up us getting out licenses to people is a group of applicants who applied for a license have sued the commission that awards those licenses because they didn't receive a license and they felt that they should have. They felt that the commission did not follow proper procedures in handing out those licenses. And so they filed a civil lawsuit in Montgomery Circuit Court. And the judge in that particular action has taken a look at what's going on there and has said, yeah, that's, we need to get to the bottom of what's kind of going on here because this is obviously not happening. And what they failed to do is, and it seemed like we had a gentleman on that talked about some of this, the Alabama Administrative Procedures Act, and because that governs this process. Because when in the state of Alabama and in other states, whenever you have a state agency, in this case, the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission, whenever you have a state agency that is awarding a license to do business, and there is a limited number of licenses, everybody who wants to do this can't just come in and apply, and if you're qualified, you get a license. You have a limited number of licenses, and so then you have a larger number of qualified applicants, people who met the minimum qualifications to receive this license. Okay. So you're going to have more applicants than you have licenses to give. So in the state of Alabama, to make sure that is a fair process, they put this process in place within the Alabama Administrative Procedures Act that basically says, all right, you can award these things out, but then these people who didn't receive a license has the right to challenge it through an investigatory hearing. All right. And so then they have this hearing, and at the hearing, they come in and they challenge, let's say Josh's weed shop challenges David's weed shop on getting the license. Well, is treated essentially like a hearing, a court hearing. You have an administrative law judge that sets up. They come in, they put on their witnesses, they can ask questions, they can present evidence. They have all of these things that's done. This is done regularly, routinely in Montgomery for other agencies. There's something to do with hospitals. Where they can only award out so many licenses for work that's being done in certain areas and stuff. And so this happens routinely in those. They go through these processes and these hearings, and it establishes a process of determining who was the best for this. And then you have evidence on file to say, we chose David's because he had X, Y, and Z, and he was much more put together. He had nobody with a background check that was sketchy or anything else. Where, I mean, look at Moon's background check. Jesus Christ, we couldn't give him anything, And so you have this, and of course, it then guards against this perception of self-dealing. Somebody gets a brother-in-law deal, that sort of stuff.
Right.
They didn't follow it. That all through this whole time, they have not followed this process. And that's what these people are suing about. And so yesterday, there was a bill dropped in the Alabama legislature, okay? That's basically its sole purpose. It did a couple of other things, like expanding the number of licenses and stuff. But its sole purpose, basically, was to say the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission is no longer required to hold investigatory hearings. The hearings where they could challenge this decision. They're no longer required to do that. They're the only agency that offers a limited number of licenses that is not required to do it. So we're just going to let them off the hook, and that's going to solve the problem. So you violated the law, you violated the procedures of this state, and the remedy of our lawmakers is, to hell with it. We'll just change it. I mean, it was, I was, honestly, because it came from who it came from. Tim Melson, Greg Albritton, and David Sessions. I don't know David Sessions well, but I've dealt with Tim Melson and Greg Albritton. I find both of those guys to be very reasonable people to talk to. Tim Melson's a doctor. Greg Albritton's a lawyer. I've spoken to Greg Albritton a lot because he often handles gambling legislation. And so I've spoken to him a ton, and I like him a lot. And the fact that they're sponsoring this is insane. I could not wrap my head around this. And I was running around here. So I tried to call, but I couldn't, it was the first day, state of the state and all this sort of thing. But I can't, why wouldn't you just make them follow the law?
Yeah. And Josh, we've been in this holding pattern for what now? 3 years? Has it been 3 years?
But that was going 4.
4 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's that seems to me to be ludicrous just on its face. And then, and I know this is not exactly the same issue, but it's a parallel issue. Yet in the meantime, people continue to use marijuana in Alabama, even without even medical marijuana being legalized fully yet, or fully implemented, the process fully implemented yet. I was having a conversation with a friend just recently who was talking about this friend was talking about a child, a grown child of theirs, and talking about how the child, smokes weed and drinks and whatever. And I'm thinking, it's just funny to me how we're making this process so complicated.
Yeah.
When the reality is people have been using weed and marijuana. They're going to continue using weed and marijuana. Yeah. I mean, weed, what are we really doing here? Let's simplify it, expedite it so the state can begin to derive some benefit from something that people are already doing anyway.
It's the same argument as with gambling.
Yeah.
I mean, there was this amazing story, and matter of fact, I'm writing about this. I think for tomorrow, if I can get all my crap together here. So it's been a few days, man. But there was a story that was broken by Pat Forty, who I've known for a long time. Louisville Courier Journal guy, now works for Yahoo. Still worked at Sports Illustrated for a while. And it was about gambling and about game fixing. In the NBA, Terry Rozier is part of this thing. If you follow it, and also it dips down into colleges and these guys are fixing games. Terry Rozier. There was the way they found this out was he was supposed to be. This is again gambling weeds. All right, so if you're a gambler, this, especially a sports gambler, there are certain, I guess, like side bets. I will call them for lack of to help people understand better. There's side bets on each game, and you can do what they call player props, and it's things that where you bet on certain players to achieve certain levels of things in the game. And so a big one is points, rebounds, assists, that sort of stuff. And so Terry Rozier for this game was set at a level. Let's say he averages 15. He was over under on points for Terry Rozier was 14 or whatever. Well, they noticed that this game there was a large amount of money oddly being placed on Rozier to go under the points that was predicted. And lo and behold, Terry Rozier goes out and plays, and about 5 minutes into playing, his foot hurts, and he takes himself out of the game. And so, they do this. And what I'm basically writing about is there's no telling how long this has gone on. All right. But the way they found it was the legalized sports betting, the legalized regulated DraftKings, FanDuel's, Hard Rock cafes, the other ones that are tethered to traditional casinos that are monitored and regulated and overseen by the federal government and by gambling commissions in states and stuff. This started offshore. All right, there's no telling how long it was going on offshore, but it was the regulated sites that have to report these things to the government, who have monitors and who have people who track it every day, who said, whoa, there's some abnormal activity taking place right here. Let's flag this and let's pay attention to what's going on right here. And they flagged it. They noticed other patterns. They flagged some more. They flagged others. And all of a sudden, they started to put together this idea that there's something nefarious taking place here. It doesn't happen without the regulation and without the federal government being involved in this sort of thing. Right now, I tie this into Alabama. Right now in Alabama, outside of the Porch Creeks and Wind Creek Entertainment, who sponsors us, outside of them, and outside of a handful of other folks, Louis Benefield and the McGregor family that operate Victoryland and historical horse racing there, and have operated historical horse racing machines in Birmingham, and Nat Wynn, who operates up in Greene County. All of these people have to go through the federal background checks every year, have to go through the federal process, are overseen and monitored by the government because they operate pari-mutuel wagering games that are monitored. Outside of that, all of the other gambling in here is essentially unmonitored, unregulated. You don't have any idea what the payouts are. You don't have any idea if somebody is back there cheating you. You don't have any idea what's taking place, or if you're going to be robbed, if they're even going to pay you for what you've done. And so this, and the state receives zilch from most of that. All right, that it is insanity what we're doing with exactly what you said with marijuana and exactly what I'm talking about with gambling. It is nobody in a reasonable mind would look at this and say, "Oh, yeah, let's just keep doing this." But that's what we keep doing year after year after year after year, and it's absurdity, man. And now, and the mindset that has led to this is also the same mindset of people that's going to come in here and say, "Well, you know what? They didn't follow the law, but the hell with that. Let's just don't worry about the laws." I'm telling you, man, if they don't have these hearings, in a few years, you're going to have a license, and there's somebody that's going to go to jail over giving out a license to somebody that shouldn't have one. I guarantee it. I will guarantee it. If you don't have this process in place, somebody's going to go to jail for doing something they shouldn't have done. So, all right, right-wing nut. Our right-wing nut for today is got himself a new job. His name is Darren Beatty. Darren used to work at the Trump White House. A speechwriter, but was fired because Darren was caught going to some white nationalist meetings. But those were the old days of 5 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, those were the old days. And Darren's got himself a new job. He was appointed by Trump over at the Department of Defense. And in the meantime, tweeted out such great things as, "Competent white men must be in charge if you want things to work. Unfortunately, our entire national ideology is predicated on coddling the feelings of women and minorities and demoralizing competent white men."
What a bunch of crap. No, our whole national, what was it? How did he phrase that? National ideology? Is that what he
Yeah,
said?
our entire national ideology.
Yeah, well, no. In fact, our national ideology or ideology, I prefer the pronunciation ideology, but whatever. Our national ideology is premised upon white supremacy. And that's pretty doggone obvious from the history of this country and the preference that white people, that was built into the law and that governed social mores for a couple of 100 years. What is he talking about? This guy and the idea, the supposition that white men are automatically more competent because they are white men is asinine. I've worked with white people, and you know what I've learned, Josh? Y'all ain't more competent than black people. Y'all ain't more time efficient than black people. You know what I've learned? People are people. People that are late and people that are incompetent are just that, whether they're white, black, or purple. There's no difference. Human beings are human beings. This idea that we have attributed certain negative attributes to a group of people based upon race, regardless of the race, is idiotic. And it makes no sense. And it doesn't hold up to scrutiny. So this guy, what he's talking about, he just sounds to me like he's a DEI hire. DEI standing for didn't earn it.
Yeah. Or just a WI, white incompetent.
Yeah.
And yeah, listen, I know that he's full of it simply because I am a white guy. And I know about the incompetency of other white people. You're right, man. It just, oh my God, it drives me. There are some things, man, that I have never been able to wrap my head around. And one of those things is this idea that somehow the color of a person's skin is in any way, shape, or form tied to their intelligence or their behavior. Okay? It's to believe such a thing, to me, to my mindset, is so idiotic and so childlike. It defies all logic to me. Because we know that that's, you can spend 1 minute around people and you know that what shapes them is the things that always shape people. Your environment, your history, your people. What you grew up with. Rich or poor. It just but to say that because your skin is darker, you're more competent or less competent.
Yeah.
Is the height of stupidity. It
is.
So just, I don't think people often enough just sit down with that notion and the number of people who believe it. All right. And consider how really stupid it is. I don't think people do it often enough. I really don't. I don't think people often enough sit back and say, wait, are they really believing that because he's got darker skin that he can't do this job? Is that what they're believing? This the skin color that's holding him back?
And I think enough white people, honestly, just candidly, don't spend enough time considering the incompetence that they find among their own and that they routinely excuse.
Yes.
They attribute to, I don't know what they attribute it to, or if they just are blind to it, and they only wake up to incompetence if they see a black face or a brown face or something like that. It's just, I think that's really where the corrections need to be made. And the same thing holds true for gender. We attribute things to women that don't make any sense. We attribute things to LGBTQ people that don't make any sense. I mean, it's just, there's this strange sort of virus that has infected, humanity, really. I started to say the United States, but it's really a global phenomenon. And it's white supremacy and white male supremacy specifically.
Yeah, and I tell you, man, and where, to me, you get, I think, honestly, I think sports are a big proving ground for a lot of things. And there's two areas in what we're talking about here that I think have been proven by sports to be idiotic, and or proven that people hold these biases and why they hold them. One is the Rooney Rule in the NFL. And the Rooney Rule, people have ridiculed it. People have said that, they're just skirting the Rooney Rule. It's just for show. It's just a show thing. It's not really helping or anything. But the Rooney Rule says that NFL teams, when they're looking for executives and for coaches, that they must interview a certain number of black candidates, qualified black candidates for those positions. And I think the statistics will back this up, that while, yes, a lot of people simply bring folks in for show sometimes to say we had no intention of hiring whoever.
Yeah.
Mike Tomlin. We had no intention of hiring Mike Tomlin, but, we brought him in because, we had to do this. It gets those black coaches who would not have had an opportunity to be in that room into that room. And then it creates that, well, I'm comfortable with these guys. I'm comfortable with them. I know them. I've talked to them. I understand what they're about. That is the difference. And the skin color is causing the problem on the front side of this, not the person's mind or his abilities or anything else. It's the skin color that's preventing him from getting into that room. And once he get in there, all those people have said, I've looked at them and said, you know what, that's, I think that guy's going to go somewhere. And they have told other people, and those guys have gotten jobs down the line somewhere, and it has changed. And you have seen a change within the NFL. And the other spot on this that you have also seen a change is at quarterback. All right.
Absolutely.
I remember when I was growing up, I remember hearing people all the time talk about how black quarterbacks just don't have the intelligence. They just want to run and they can't read defenses and they'll just never be. And we're going to be put at receiver. We're going to put you at receiver.
Yep.
We're going to put Cam Newton at tight end. And it just. Now, that's all people want. It's the athletic quarterback that can read the defense and make the plays and make the throws. And can you even imagine how many great quarterbacks we have lost because of that racist shit that people believed for 50 years, before we finally gave Randall Cunningham and Mike Vick and Warren Moon and all these other guys a shot?
Yeah, and I was just going to say, and some of those guys are not even that athletic. Warren Moon was not particularly athletic.
You be talking about my uncle.
Well, I'm sorry, Josh, but he wasn't. What was he, 5'10", 5'11"?
He was not. No, he was a good threat. He was a good passer. He was a good quarterback. But
he was a great passer.
Yeah,
he was a great quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking him at all. Right. I grew up admiring him, but when you look at him as a quote unquote athlete, meaning speed, running, jumping, that kind of mobility.
I'm not going to have you knocking the Moon name this way. I'm just not. Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm just not. I can't sit back and allow this Moon.
He
bias.
He was no Randall Cunningham. He was no. He wasn't
Mike
even
Vick,
Doug
Lamar
Williams.
Jackson.
Yeah,
no. He was good. It was kind of the same with Donovan McNabb.
Great example. Great example.
And I know exactly what you mean, but I don't know. I think about that sometimes, and I think, man, look at all these guys. Pat Mahomes, and who's endlessly annoying to me, but still is a fantastic quarterback. And Lamar,
probably top 3 right now. You'd have to say he may be one of the top 3 ever.
Yeah,
they're saying. If he gets this 3-peat, You know, you're gonna have to say, you know, he's
long
up
as
there
Brady's
with Montana
out there,
and Brady.
She's I don't know. Brady was just such a
Brady's a beast. Look, I'm not knocking Tom Brady. He was a beast. And so
But
was Joe
Mahomes is only, what,
Montana.
29? Yeah, so I mean,
But
hell,
I'm
he can
just
catch
saying.
Brady. Yeah.
I'm just
Catch
saying.
Brady Super Bowls at this point. But no, listen, you know, I just think about that, about, you know, how many we lost, you know, along the way. How many great quarterbacks were probably moved to receiver or, you know, or whatever, and never really given a full shot at doing this. And you know, it just, you know, my boy Cam, you know, I even when Cam played, you know, it was a completely different league. If Cam Newton had played in today's NFL, even, you know, as recently as he played, if he had played in today's NFL with the protections and stuff, oh my God, that guy, he was like nothing I've ever seen before.
We might be talking about him the same way we're talking about Mahomes, really.
Yeah, it could be. If Carolina had bothered to go out and get one decent receiver after Steve Smith, it would have been something else. But all right, let's man, I want you to think about the breadth of this show that we have given here. I mean, we had exercising, we've had football. I mean, we've had Decatur City Council,
Decatur politics,
the legislature. I mean, we went into music for a little while and the Grammys. I mean, my God, man, people should pay for this. Let's say it. All right, we're gonna slide out of here. Until next week, y'all be safe out there.
Peace.